Atlas of the Heart. Written by Brené Brown. Summarized by goldreaders.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Introduction. Picture yourself wandering in darkness through an unfamiliar city, attempting to find your way towards a distant shining light on a hill. Amongst the shadows, you encounter vague shapes that seem familiar, but you can't be certain. Your ultimate goal is to reach that light, but the path ahead involves crossing deep gorges and scaling intimidating hills, with no clear route in sight. In such a situation, you may feel lost, lacking a clear understanding of your emotional state. You might struggle to label your feelings or comprehend intense emotions. For example, you might wonder why a specific individual always manages to provoke a strong reaction in you. Are there deeper meanings behind the emotions you experience, or is it simply an indication that you need rest? You yearn for comprehension, but the answers seem just beyond your grasp, hidden within the foggy darkness. As you search for answers, you are jolted by emotions, thrown off course, and left feeling confused, sometimes even desperate. Your desire is to arrive at a place where you feel grounded in content, but it remains elusive, akin to the distant light on the hill that always seems to be just around the next corner, never within reach. Nowadays, discussing emotions has become more commonplace. Talk shows now frequently use terms like trauma, and we can openly discuss experiences of vulnerability and depression in ways we couldn't before. However, do we truly understand the meanings of these words? Can we differentiate between joy and happiness? What about shame and guilt? There is still much to learn about emotions, and that's where Brené Brown comes in. She provides clarity on the factors that shape our lives. In these summaries, we will gain some guidance for navigating our emotional landscapes with an atlas known as the Atlas of the Heart. We will learn how to approach our feelings with greater nuance and clarity. So let's delve into it. Throughout these summaries, you will discover why hopelessness and despair are the most perilous emotions one can experience, how understanding your emotions can revolutionize your relationships, why happiness and joy should not be treated as interchangeable. Chapter 1. The Magical Child. During her upbringing, Brené Brown was convinced of her possession of extraordinary abilities, such as foreseeing the future and establishing connections that eluded those around her. She recalls her high school swimming coach's explosive temper, which terrified all her classmates. They couldn't understand why he would suddenly become so angry all the time. But Brené knew the reason. She had noticed that he would lose his temper when people didn't put in enough effort during practice. It didn't matter how talented someone was, if they weren't fully committed to improvement, he would explode. Conversely, if he saw that someone was taking practice seriously, even if they were an average swimmer, he would never get angry at them. And he particularly enjoyed the backstroke. As a result, Brené focused on perfecting her backstroke in order to avoid drawing attention and anger from her coach. She gave it her all. The heightened levels of awareness she developed as a child, which felt like her magical abilities, primarily served the purpose of staying unnoticed. These abilities helped her navigate her complicated home life with her unpredictable parents. In public, her parents appeared sociable, kind, and fun. However, behind closed doors, their behavior was unpredictable. They would experience extreme mood swings and could become angrily volatile without much or any warning. It was perplexing, and it made Brené and her 4 siblings feel ashamed. Since their parents only exhibited such behavior at home, Brené and her siblings naturally believed that they were to blame for triggering their parents' outbursts. Moreover, as the oldest child, Brené felt responsible for protecting her siblings from their parents' angry episodes. Consequently, she became highly observant. She learned to identify people's vulnerabilities, which she now refers to as shame triggers, those ill-timed jokes or misjudged requests that could provoke an intense reaction in someone. In addition to her parents, Breen started noticing how other adults around her would direct their anger towards unrelated everyday situations, such as watching sports or experiencing road rage. She understood that these outbursts often had little to do with the actual cause of their anger. At the time, Breen didn't know how to utilize this heightened emotional awareness. Nobody in her household discussed their feelings or expressed them openly. The only acceptable emotion was anger. Even though Breen could anticipate the outbursts, it was still painful to experience them firsthand. Ironically, emotional awareness is now Breen Brown's well-known area of expertise. It is a superpower she has developed throughout her remarkable career, and a skill she imparts in her book, Atlas of the Heart. Chapter 2. Reclaiming the Edge. If you have eggshells taped to your feet, it's impossible to avoid being cautious and careful in your interactions. This metaphor is often used to describe someone who is overly sensitive to others' moods and reactions. In Breen's case, she felt as though the eggshells were firmly attached to the soles of her shoes. She was extremely attuned to potential problems or negative outcomes, which caused her great distress. To cope with these overwhelming feelings, Breen resorted to partying, smoking, and drinking. While these activities temporarily numbed her emotions, they also made her perception of the world hazy. She lost the ability to deeply understand people's inner workings. Fear and anxiety consumed her, and her desperate attempt to avoid pain led her to seek experiences that only intensified her suffering. Alcohol became her means of taking the edge off, but it also muted her unique qualities and strengths. Recognizing the detrimental effects of her coping mechanisms, Breen sought the help of a skilled therapist. This marked the beginning of a challenging and lengthy process of reclaiming her true self. She stopped drinking and embarked on a journey of rediscovering the importance of allowing herself to feel, embracing pain, and navigating the complexities of vulnerability and uncomfortable emotions. Today, Breen views her sensitivity to emotions as a valuable asset. It serves as a guide to establish her personal boundaries, understand her needs, and empathize with those around her. This newfound perspective has fueled an extraordinary career for her. Through her book, Atlas of the Heart, Breen provides a roadmap for individuals who, like her, are afraid of pain. It caters to those who experience intense emotions but struggle to manage them effectively. It offers an alternative approach to connecting with others when fear arises and satisfies the yearning for genuine vulnerability. Now, let's delve deeper into the contents of this atlas. The book explores a total of 87 emotions, and we will focus on a few of them in particular. Despite their commonality, you may be surprised by the underlying factors that contribute to these emotions. Chapter 3. Expand your emotional vocabulary. Not all of us can become renowned experts on emotions like Breen, so why should we invest our time in learning more about our feelings? Consider this scenario: you experience a sharp, shooting pain in your shoulder. It's unbearable and persistent, interfering with your daily life. In response, you rush to the emergency room. A compassionate doctor comes in to diagnose the issue. As you attempt to explain, something peculiar happens. You struggle to find the right words. You can only vaguely point to the general area where the pain resides, but you can't pinpoint the exact location. Consequently, the doctor is unable to provide the necessary assistance. Frustrated, you continue to endure the shoulder pain. Here's the underlying point: language holds significance. It serves as a bridge between ourselves and others, allowing us to express our emotions and, importantly, seek the support we require. However, when it comes to emotions, most of us find ourselves in a situation similar to the person with the painful shoulder. We lack the vocabulary to describe what's happening within us, to others or even to ourselves. Here's an intriguing fact. Breen and her team of researchers asked 7,000 individuals to identify the emotions they experienced. Surprisingly, the average number of emotions people listed was a mere 3: sadness, anger, and happiness. That's it: mad, sad, glad. Despite the vast array of emotions in the world, most people could only categorize them into these 3 general groups. Why is this problematic? It's akin to informing the doctor that you're experiencing a pain somewhere in the upper half of your body, using only the word bad to describe it, instead of being able to convey that it's throbbing, aching, or shooting. The ability to recognize and describe your emotions with precision is what researchers refer to as emotional granularity. This level of granularity can greatly benefit your life in numerous ways. Having the appropriate words enables you to identify your feelings and understand their origins. By recognizing your triggers, you become better equipped to find ways to comfort yourself. Breen asserts that gaining insight into your emotional states allows you to establish a connection with yourself, preventing feelings of numbness and disconnection. This self-connection forms the basis for genuine and loving relationships with others. Perhaps most importantly, being able to articulate your emotions precisely empowers you to ask for, and receive, the specific support you need. So let's examine 2 commonly discussed emotions, sadness and happiness, and explore how expanding your emotional vocabulary will enhance your comprehension and navigation of your internal landscape. Chapter 4. Journeying through pain. We've all encountered these places numerous times. Something occurs that causes us distress, and we typically describe our emotional state as sadness. However, what does that truly entail? Sadness should not be equated with depression. Depression is a long-lasting condition, whereas sadness is often a fleeting sentiment triggered by specific circumstances. Feeling sad is an essential aspect of being human. It's a natural response to loss or defeat, experiences we all go through. Because we are familiar with sadness, we can identify it in others and empathize with our friends when they're in pain. Empathy for your friends and making time for them arises from your own first-hand encounter with sadness. Feeling sad enables us to experience a sense of vitality and connectedness with others. It can also enhance our decision-making abilities as we become more attuned to our environment. Consider the popularity of melancholic movies and the catharsis of shedding tears on the couch while watching TV. These experiences move us and foster a sense of connection with fellow human beings. Hence, this is the essence of feeling sad. However, there are other emotions and experiences associated with pain that are distinct but often get grouped under the sad category. For instance, individuals may encounter anguish, grief, hopelessness, or despair. These emotions possess distinct qualities and necessitate different responses from us. Chapter 5. Pain strikes at the core. Anguish, characterized by its shocking, unexpected, and traumatic nature, can also have a profound physical impact on us. Breen experienced this firsthand when she received an unexpected call from a childhood friend who revealed her suicidal thoughts resulting from a childhood trauma Breen was unaware of. Upon hearing this, Breen collapsed to the floor, physically overwhelmed by anguish. Breen describes anguish as something that comes for the bones, implying that it deeply affects us at our core. While people possess resilience and can recover from such trauma, they require support. Without it, they may go through the motions of life while remaining emotionally numb, or feeling mentally and physically broken. Alternatively, they may respond to the pain by adopting rigid perfectionism, shutting out vulnerability in an attempt to maintain a sense of stability. Effective support allows individuals to acknowledge and process their pain while learning to rebuild their lives. Body-centered therapies that address the physical manifestations of trauma can be particularly valuable in providing such support. Although anguish is sudden, bewildering, and painful, it is not as perilous as two other negative emotions we can experience when we are in a distressed state: hopelessness and despair. These two emotions are interconnected but differ in their scope. Hopelessness arises when we are unable to set realistic goals for our lives. Even if we have a goal in mind, we struggle to determine how to achieve it. If our attempts result in failure, we become discouraged and engage in self-criticism. We lose faith in our abilities and feel devoid of agency in our own lives. Hopelessness often pertains to specific areas such as relationships or finances. Despair, on the other hand, encompasses our entire existence. It is a pervasive feeling that our entire life is devoid of hope and will never improve. We feel trapped and unable to find a way out of our circumstances. The experience of hopelessness and despair frequently leads to suicidal thoughts and actions. When we are in emotional pain and believe there is no escape, it may seem distortedly logical to end our lives as a means of asserting some control over the situation. To bolster our resilience in the face of hopelessness and despair, there are several practical steps we can take, which will be explored in the following chapters. Chapter 6: Finding Light in Darkness. The ability to have hope is not just an emotion but a skill. To overcome hopelessness and despair, we should focus on cultivating hope. Many people perceive hope as a warm and fuzzy feeling, but that is not entirely accurate. In reality, being hopeful is a skill that can be developed. Being hopeful involves setting realistic goals, determining how to achieve them, and having confidence in your own abilities. Hope arises from facing challenges and realizing that you can bounce back from them. To learn how to be hopeful, it is necessary to practice setting achievable goals. Equally important is embracing failure and being willing to explore alternative approaches if the initial one doesn't succeed. The great thing about learning to be hopeful is that it can spread to others. For instance, research has shown that optimistic parents tend to have optimistic children. In addition to honing hopeful skills, you can also enhance your resilience by following the 3Ps framework proposed by researcher Martin Seligman: personalization, permanence, and pervasiveness. When overwhelmed by despair, it's beneficial to reflect on these aspects. First, consider personalization by questioning whether the situation is truly about you and if external factors play a role that you haven't considered. If it feels like the situation will never change, permanence, engage in a quick thought experiment to assess its significance in the long run. Will it still matter in a few minutes, days, or months? Lastly, if the problem seems all-encompassing, pervasiveness, and has consumed your entire life, take a moment to evaluate its true impact. Perhaps you made a mistake at work, but does that mean you've ruined your family and friendships? These strategies serve as a pause button when you feel overwhelmed, giving your rational mind an opportunity to regain control and provide perspective. Sadness, anguish, and despair are undoubtedly challenging emotions, but they can also be valuable teachers. As resilient individuals, we can navigate these emotions, fostering greater engagement, empathy, and courageous vulnerability along the way. However, it is crucial to remember that we can't do it alone. It's important to seek help and receive appropriate support tailored to the specific emotions we are facing. Chapter 7: The Complex Landscape of Positive Emotions. Interestingly, even the most knowledgeable happiness researchers, who dedicate their lives to studying this emotion, cannot reach a consensus on its precise definition. Most of the research conducted so far has focused on happiness as a characteristic or an inherent part of our being. rather than as a temporary state that we experience from time to time. Adding to the confusion, happiness is often used interchangeably with joy, as if they were synonymous terms for describing a positive state. However, Breen, through her research, has discovered that happiness and joy are actually distinct from one another. Happiness is a long-lasting emotion that typically arises from a sense of control. It directs our attention towards ourselves or our personal achievements. On the other hand, joy emerges suddenly and unexpectedly. It is brief and intense, capturing our attention outwardly instead of inwardly, and creating a feeling of connection with other people, God, or the universe. Joy makes us feel liberated, alive, and fully aware. It brings intense pleasure and is accompanied by a sense of gratitude and appreciation. Interestingly, joy can also be a bit unsettling and even frightening. The experience of joy is so magnificent that it can leave us feeling vulnerable, afraid of losing that joy. Breen refers to this experience as foreboding joy. It occurs when, for example, you observe your children sleeping peacefully, and you are overwhelmed with joy accompanied by an irrational fear that something terrible might happen to them. It's a way of mentally preparing for tragedy in an attempt to mitigate the pain when it actually occurs, because, in moments of joy, you become acutely aware of what you stand to lose. Many of us have become so accustomed to this sense of foreboding joy that we engage in it without even consciously realizing it. We start considering it normal or realistic to expect the worst outcomes. However, living in this manner deprives us of the incredible benefits that come from freely experiencing joy. Breen encountered a man during her vulnerability study who had spent his life anticipating the worst, using it as emotional protection. Unfortunately, the worst did happen to him when his wife died in a car accident. He realized that his previously pessimistic outlook had not prepared him for this painful event. It had only robbed him of fully cherishing the time he had with his wife while she was alive. Allowing yourself to experience joy involves practicing gratitude for what you have in the present moment. In fact, researchers have found a strong connection between joy and gratitude, describing it as a positive upward spiral. If gratitude is one of our characteristics, we will have more moments of joy in the present. Similarly, if we are inclined to experience joy, we will find more opportunities to feel grateful. These emotions mutually reinforce each other. Furthermore, like many other emotions, gratitude can be cultivated and learned. Keeping a gratitude journal or taking a moment each day to vocalize one thing you are grateful for trains your brain to seek out similar experiences. Chapter 8. Embrace the messy journey. Embrace the contradictions and complexities of your emotions. Throughout our brief moments of existence, we have explored two emotional landscapes, the realm of pain and the places we venture when life treats us kindly. However, this inward journey is far from simple. The tidy labels of sadness and happiness are teeming with intricacies and contradictions. We have discussed how sadness can strangely bring comfort, while happiness may pale in comparison to true joy. We have acknowledged that emotions can manifest not only in our minds but also in our bodies. Surprisingly, we possess the power to influence our emotional state through practices such as cultivating hopefulness. Emotional experiences are messy and multifaceted. To truly delve into them, you must grow accustomed to embracing paradoxes. Paradoxical elements may appear diametrically opposed, but in reality, they are interconnected, much like light and darkness. One cannot exist without the other. As the navigator of your own emotions, it is crucial to become increasingly at ease with emotional paradoxes. For instance, you may yearn for closeness with others but unknowingly engage in behaviors that isolate yourself. Or you might exude confidence while leading a board meeting, yet crumble whenever you must speak to your mother. Embracing these paradoxes with warmth and curiosity will aid you in your journey of uncovering and celebrating the intricacies of your own heart. Like any worthwhile expedition, there are no shortcuts. You will encounter numerous obstacles and confront your own vulnerabilities. Persevere. Embrace the messiness and contradictions. Embrace the raw vulnerability of living. Conclusion. Emotional granularity refers to the ability to recognize and express our emotions and experiences to others. The more precise and detailed our vocabulary for emotions is, the more extensive our inner world becomes. By being aware of our emotional states, we can develop a positive relationship with ourselves and those around us. Additionally, here is some practical advice. If you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, it's important to take a break. When strong emotions like fear or anger take over, the logical part of your brain becomes less effective. This state isn't ideal for engaging in conflicts or making important decisions. It's helpful to incorporate breaks into your communication with loved ones. When you feel overwhelmed, take some time alone to take deep breaths and process your emotions. Once you feel calmer, you can resume the conversation or situation from where you left off.